Hi, welcome to our black bean sweet potato quesadilla class. I don't want to get started too quickly because I know people are just joining now, but if you want to introduce yourself, I can say hello. Feel free to just write in the comments there. Yeah, as you're joining, just chime in and say hi in the comments. I'd love to know who's cooking with us today. My name is Elena, by the way. I should tell you who I am. I'm so sorry if you were hoping to see Mr. Sam. We got our internal wires crossed today, so we said that Mr. Sam was teaching class, but I'm teaching class today. But Mr. Sam is teaching on Wednesday, so you'll get to see him then. So while everybody's settling in, I do want to remind you, make sure to wash your hands before you start cooking. And in a couple minutes, I'll start going over our ingredients to make sure that you have everything that you need for class. Just in case you didn't know, we are making black bean sweet potato quesadillas. So this was actually one of our first recipes. So this recipe we probably cooked for the first time at Kids Table, probably 13 years ago or 12 years ago. So that's kind of exciting. And this is all in line with our theme, Meatless Mondays. So every Monday we're making a different recipe at 4 o'clock here on Facebook Live to highlight, all of our recipes at Kids Table are vegetarian just because we wanted it to be really hands-on for kids. We thought that having really little kids touch raw meat and then touch their face and everything else seemed like a terrible idea. So, and it's been a really fun journey for us to kind of explore more plant-based foods. We are using cheese in our quesadillas, so don't worry. And the fun thing about these is everybody can build their own. So we're gonna be steaming some sweet potato, we're gonna be making a seasoned black bean mixture, we're gonna be grating cheese, but then when it comes to assembly, you can have everyone in the family build their own quesadilla, and so everybody can choose what they want on theirs. So of course, I'm gonna put everything on, but everybody can make theirs to suit their taste. So let's go ahead and go over the ingredients that we need and the equipment we need for our black bean sweet potato quesadillas. So I've got sweet potato, so of course black bean sweet potato quesadillas, we need that. And I peeled my sweet potato and cut it into rounds that are about 3/4 of an inch thick. You can cut yours thinner. Of course, if you have an older child who's chopping on their own, you can just cut it up into cubes with them. This is how we prep it for kids to use our choppers. So these choppers are awesome and they go through sweet potato, but you need to have a smaller piece to make it possible, right? So we've got our sliced sweet potato. We've got some onion. We need about 1/4 of a small onion. And I cut that again. We're gonna finely chop it, but I cut it into rainbows to show you guys the chopper and how we use that. So this is again how we prep our onion for kids in class. And I have a garlic clove, which it still has the skin on, so I'm just gonna peel it before I mince it, because I can do that with the chopper. We've got black beans. You need a 1/2 can of black beans drained and rinsed. I have a whole can here, and I drained and rinsed the whole can because I'm kind of curious how much drained and rinsed black beans are in a whole can. So I'm just gonna check it out and then measure out 1/2 when we're ready. We need a little bit of milk, just a couple tablespoons to mash our sweet potato, because that's basically what we're gonna do. We're gonna steam our sweet potato and then mash it up, kind of like you would make mashed potatoes, and use that in our quesadilla. So you need a little bit of milk. You need 2 seasonings, salt and cumin. We just need about 1/4 teaspoon of each. We need a little bit of oil for sauteing. Of course, we need cheese. I'm using cheddar, but you can use any cheese that you want. Something that's meltable, and I would say along the lines of, you could use mozzarella, but you could use Chihuahua, that'd be really good. You could use Monterey Jack. You could use Colby. You could use Colby Jack. If anybody else has any ideas, feel free to chime in. You could do a mix of cheeses. So yeah, whatever you'd like to do. So I've got, like I said, cheddar. I'm very excited about. And then for assembling, we need tortillas. So I've got really small tortillas. They're very small. I would recommend larger ones, as these will make very cute little quesadillas. It doesn't really matter. If you have smaller ones, you can make more quesadillas. And then for toppings, I was really sad that I don't have any salsa here. I thought there was salsa here, but I don't have any. So all I have is Greek yogurt, which is very much like sour cream. We use Greek yogurt almost always in place of sour cream. So I'm just gonna put that on top. But if you have salsa, you can put salsa on top. If you like things spicy, I think pickled jalapenos would be really good on that. Maybe not for the kiddos, or maybe. All right, so that I think does it for our ingredients. If anybody has any questions about the ingredients, feel free to type it in there. And I'm gonna talk about the tools that we need really quickly before we get started. If you guys are joining us right now, we are making black bean sweet potato quesadillas. One of our all-time favorite and long-time recipes. Probably, as I said earlier, first time we made it was maybe 12 or 13 years ago, so super cool. Equipment, cutting board. We're making black bean sweet potato quesadillas, Sheila. So cutting board, chopper or knife for cutting up our sweet potato, our onion, and our garlic. We need a grater for grating our cheese. And then once we steam our sweet potato, we're gonna need a masher to mash it up. And a bowl for mashing, of course. You'll need just a couple measurements, a tablespoon for measuring out the milk, and 1/8 of a teaspoon, we use a dash measure, for measuring out the salt and the cumin. You will need a pot for steaming your sweet potato and a steamer basket. So I've got one of those cool steamer baskets that you can just fit into any pot. So I'm gonna be doing that. Make sure you have a lid for your pot, because for steaming, you need a lid. If you don't put a lid on it, it cooks very, very slowly. And you can go ahead and put a little water in your steamer basket. Make sure it doesn't go into the basket. The water level should be below the basket. And then you're gonna need a pan for sauteing your black beans, and you can use the same pan for cooking your quesadillas if you want. You can use one of those electric skillets for your quesadillas too. We have one, but I thought my table was pretty full already, so I'm just gonna do it in this pan. And then a spoon for stirring your beans and a spatula for flipping your quesadillas. Whew, I think that about covers it. So that is what everyone should have handy if you want to participate with us. Of course, you can just follow along, and we'll save the video on our timeline, save it on our website, so that you can do it later. Oh, hey, Asher. Good to see you. So happy you're cooking with us today. Let's go and get started. If you haven't done so, wash your hands. Very important. If you touch your face or lick your fingers during class, wash your hands. Okay. Want to keep it clean because you're sharing with your family, I assume. Okay, we're going to go ahead and start by chopping up our sweet potato. So as I mentioned, I already peeled my sweet potato and cut it into slices so that it'll make it easier for me to use this awesome chopper to cut it into cubes. So of course you can do this with a knife. Older kids can do this with a knife with supervision if you think they're up for it. But for younger kids, the chopper is awesome. So quick lesson on the chopper, the longer side is always, it's easier if it's facing away from you, and then make sure you make your little claw with your fingertips. That's good for chopper or knife use. And then I'm gonna just cut my slice into sticks first, and then I'll go back and cut my sticks into cubes. So we want our sweet potatoes to be about the same size, the cubes. It's not gonna be exact, but if you have really tiny pieces and really big pieces, they will cook at different rates. So that is science right there. So the big pieces will take longer to cook, the little pieces will get completely mushy. So I've got my cubes about that big. You know, like I said, don't go too big. You can go smaller than this if you want, and your sweet potatoes will cook faster. So I'm gonna go ahead and put them right in my steamer basket that I have here with my pot. Maybe I'll move this over so you can actually see it a little better. Let's see. There we go, you can kind of see it now. So I'm just gonna go ahead and cube all of my sweet potatoes. And you can cube 2 sticks at a time once you know, get practice at it. I've had a lot of practice chopping, as you can imagine. So I just used one small sweet potato. I don't even know if we're gonna need all of this, but I'm gonna cut it all up anyway. And I can always eat leftover mashed sweet potato as a side. And if you ever eat mashed sweet potatoes as a side for dinner, you could just make extra and save it and add a little cumin to it to get that, Tex-Mex-y flavoring and use it in this dish. So it's really fun to repurpose leftovers if you can. Saves a lot of time. Okay, so I've got 2 of my slices of sweet potato cut up. How are you guys doing on your sweet potato? Okay. Oh, it's a little hard. Okay. Perfect. I'm gonna see if I can cut 3 at a time. Oh yeah. I love how the chopper makes these pretty wavy cuts. Yeah, it's actually a garnish tool, this guy. It's a real cooking tool that adults use to make wavy cut carrots and potatoes and stuff. Just happens to work really well for kids too. Oh, I made that one a little too thick. Oh well. I will just make sure that I cut those cubes a little bit smaller. Makes it a little harder for me to cut through too. That's all right. I'm up to the challenge. I needed a workout today anyway. Maybe I'll cut it this way. There we go. That'll work better. Okay, I only have 1 slice left after this. I hope yours is coming along okay too. I'm gonna go ahead and actually turn my burner on now to get my water heating a little bit while I add the rest of my sweet potato. All right, last slice. Whoop, I dropped one. Okay. Sometimes you gotta wiggle the chopper to get it to go through. Perfect. Okay. These would make really good thick sweet potato fries. Do you guys like sweet potatoes? I love sweet potatoes. I used to not like them. I really like them pan roasted or oven roasted, so they're really crispy. I think I'm a little hungry. All right, last one, guys. I'm gonna shake it out a little bit. Okay. Perfect. Okay, are you guys good? Do you guys have your sweet potato cut up? Is it in the pot? Getting ready to steam? You know what I didn't do? I'm gonna get a fork so that I can check my sweet potato after about 10 or 12 minutes, because that's how I like to check to see if it's tender. So what you can do is stick a fork. Obviously you have to be very careful, because when you open this lid, since the sweet potatoes are steaming, there's gonna be a lot of steam that comes out of the pot. So you have to be very, very careful. So you very carefully can, an adult probably should reach in with a fork, and if you poke the sweet potato and the sweet potato piece very easily kind of breaks apart, then that means it's ready. So I'm gonna grab a fork so that I can do that test with my sweet potatoes. And I see Mr. Sam just chimed in that he loves sweet potatoes. I love it. Yes, North Carolina. All right, I'm gonna grab a fork. I'm gonna let you guys make sure your sweet potatoes are in the pot and steaming, or getting ready to steam. And then we're gonna go ahead and cut up our onion and garlic for our black beans, okay? So I'll be right back. All right, okay, so we got our sweet potatoes steaming. We don't actually need to prep anything else for that. When that's done, we'll mash it up with a little milk, a little cumin, a little salt. So that's gonna be all good. We just have to measure a couple things in when we're ready. For the black beans, we need to finely chop some onion and mince some garlic, okay? So the recipe calls for 1/4 of a small onion. So a small onion, I would say, is about that big, all right? So maybe a little smaller than a tennis ball, okay? So I want to show you guys something. Look at that onion. That is a ginormous onion. It's like the size of a softball, okay? So we wouldn't want 1/4 of this onion. It would be too oniony. I love onion, but too much is too much. So I just wanted to show you guys that because I thought it was pretty cool. But I've got just my little bit. I think this is about 1/4 of a small onion. Might be a little bit more, but that's okay. So I cut it, as I told you earlier, into little rainbows. So that is how we always give it to kids so that they can finally chop it easily with our choppers. So I'm gonna go ahead and use my chopper to just cut across this rainbow. So I have very little tiny pieces of onion. You know, like smaller than 1/8 of an inch, I would say. Or about 1/8 of an inch, that's fine. Okay, and once you chop it, you can just brush it off to the side. Oh, and I can hear my water bubbling over here. Oh yeah. So the sweet potatoes are cooking. How long they take will depend on how big you cut your sweet potatoes up. I think mine are gonna take at least 12 minutes. Let me look at the time. Okay, it's 4:20. I think they'll take till at least 4:30, but we'll see. All right. And you can saw, sometimes that outer layer of the onion is a little hard to get through. I'm gonna use that as my garbage bowl. So you can just take that outer layer off if you have a hard time cutting through it. Okay, so I've got a nice pile, as you can see, of minced, finely chopped, not minced, onion right there. I still got a few rainbows left though, so I'm gonna finish. Oh my, I've got steam coming out. I can tell that it's steaming nicely because you can see a little steam escaping from under my pot lid. All right, I'm gonna finish finely chopping this onion. I'm gonna do 2 rainbows at a time here. And this onion is not making me cry at all. Sometimes when onions are really strong, I cry a lot, but this one isn't bothering me at all. I hope your onions aren't that strong either. So I've got a little plate. I could leave my onion on my board, but I want a little space for mincing my garlic. So I'm just gonna use my chopper to scrape my onion off my cutting board onto my plate. Great. Okay, fabulous. So now we are gonna mince something, and it is onions, kind of like onion's cousin. My favorite ingredient. I've said this like every time I use it in these classes, so anybody know what that is? It's garlic. And look at how pretty. This garlic has very beautiful purple skin. I love it. So I left the skin on so I could show you. We want to cut off, so the tip part comes off very easily, okay? The top part that was attached to the root, kind of have to cut it off. But I can just use the chopper to cut that very tip off, and then you can peel the skin off. Okay, it comes off usually pretty easily. And then, you can smell it. It smells so good. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to cut our garlic, chop it into, probably 12 pieces or so. We just want to cut it up a little bit into chunks, okay? I'm gonna slice it first. Make sure to keep those fingertips tucked in when you're holding the garlic. And then once we have them in little chunks, then we can use our chopper to mince it. So I'm gonna show you guys how that works. So this is what it looks like now. So I cut it up into, small pieces. And then I'm gonna keep my other hand out of the way, and I'm gonna use my chopping hand to do little bunny hop chops over the garlic to mince it. So you just keep going over and over the garlic, and it'll jump around a little bit, but that's why you gotta keep your hops really small. And then you can scrape it all back together. And then we just keep going over and over. And scrape it back together. I have one really big piece left that I gotta get. Oh, there we go. Okay, scraping it back together. And here we go again. Oh, it smells so good in the garlic. It smells good. It's a little sticky. Okay. I think that's good. It's not as minced as deep, but we're cooking it. So we're gonna take a little bit of the edge off. We don't have to worry about it being too pungent. Like if it was in a salad dressing, you'd really wanna make sure it was tiny. But I think I'll show you how big mine is. I'm gonna go over it one more time. And then hopefully you'll be able to see. So you can check it against what yours looks like. Of course, if you have a garlic press, you can use a garlic press. So I'm wiping the garlic off my blade by going down toward the blade. All right, that's the only safe way to do it. You never want to go up, okay? Okay, so this is what my garlic looks like. No, just little tiny pieces. So I'm gonna go ahead and scrape this onto my plate that has my onion on it, because I think, well, it says to saute the onion first. Sometimes we say to put them in together, but I think I can still fit it on the side plate, but I am gonna keep it a little separate from my onion. Because the onion we do wanna cook it often for a little longer, and the garlic can burn if it's in the pan for too long without lots of other ingredients. Okay, oh, I gotta scrape off my chopper again, hold on. All right, is it time to check? I don't think it's time to check our sweet potatoes yet. It's only been about 5 minutes, so I'm sure they're not ready yet. Okay, so we do not have anything else we need to chop unless we wanna chop our cheese. So, typically in our classes, we grate our cheese, but you can just thinly slice it. So I'm gonna show you guys both techniques, all right? They both work. So if you do slice it, make sure you do it nice and thin. So, because we're just gonna, quesadilla is all about a thin layer of all of your ingredients. If it's too thick, everything just mushes out when you try to bite into it. It's not good. All right, so I'm gonna take the chopper and show you, and use your, little bear claw, and then really make sure you're looking on the other side to see how much cheese you're getting off. And you can really almost shave it. See how thin that is? Like you can almost see through it. Almost, not quite. So that's what you can do if you'd like. If you want, you can just do these thin little slices. Okay, that's one way to do it. So maybe I'll do, actually, I'll show you the grating, and then I might do one of my pieces thinly sliced and one grated. We'll see how I feel. So with the grater, so these are the graters we use. They're perfect for little hands. And honestly, they're kind of convenient if you're only grating a small piece of cheese. But if you have a bigger box grater, idea is the same. With this one, you need to figure out which side you're using, because you can kind of flip it over. So make sure you gotta make sure the blades are facing up, because that's what cuts the cheese. And then always put it down on something so that you can press into it, right? And hold your cheese in the hand you write with, the grater in the other hand. And then we're basically just gonna slide our cheese down the grater, because the blades are facing up, which means that when you push the cheese down onto the blades, it grates the cheese. So this is another way you can do it. So with this way, you can just kind of sprinkle the grated cheese on top of your quesadilla fillings instead of arranging our thin slices. So I think both ways work. And as long as your slices are really thin, they will melt quickly. Okay, if you have thicker slices, they will take longer to melt, so I don't recommend that. So I'm gonna grate this whole piece of cheese. I really wanna eat some, but I'm not gonna eat any yet. I'm gonna wait until my piece of cheese gets really, really small, because I don't want my fingers too close to the grater, right? The grater, I've cut myself on a grater before and it does not feel good. So I'm gonna keep my fingers away from the grater, so when my piece of cheese gets really, really small, then I can eat it, which I'm pretty excited about. I think I mentioned that I'm hungry. Did I say that already? Yeah, I'm pretty hungry. Oh my gosh, look at this mountain of cheese that I have. And I think I can still grate more here. So by the way, we're using 4 ounces of cheese. Obviously you can just, and that's for 4 quesadillas. So, you know, an ounce, if you really like cheese, you could maybe do 2 ounces per quesadilla. But again, you know, the more, if you stuff your quesadilla too full, stuff just kind of falls out. Okay, so I'm getting pretty close to not being able to safely grate this anymore. So I'm gonna do 2 more grates, and then I'm gonna eat my little piece of cheese. Delicious. So good. I'm gonna eat 1 more piece. Did you see I didn't touch my mouth on purpose, so I didn't have to go wash my hands? Okay, so I'm gonna move my grated cheese over, and I think I'm gonna finish slicing this piece of cheese. I don't really need all this cheese for me, but maybe I'll make extra quesadillas to take home. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and keep slicing the rest of my cheese. Uh-oh, you know what I smell? I have to make sure that my water didn't run out of my pot, because that can happen sometimes. So you always want to make sure you have enough water in the bottom of your pot that it doesn't all evaporate before your potatoes are done, right? I'm gonna go get a hot pad so that I can check my potatoes, because my lid is really hot, so be careful with that. I'll be right back. All right, I brought some extra water just in case. So let's see what's going on. I smell some burning. So I have a feeling that my water evaporated. Oh, but my sweet potatoes are done. So I'm gonna show you what I mean by the sweet potato breaking apart with the fork, so that you know how to tell when yours are done. So here, watch this. So when I poke it with a fork, it just very easily kind of breaks apart, right? I don't have to really try. It's just very mashable, like it's mashing just with the fork. So that is the texture that we want, because we want to be able to mash them. We don't want any little kind of crisp, tender bits of sweet potato. We want it cooked all the way through. So let's see. I'm pretty sure that I did burn my pot. I don't know that I even want to look now, but I'm going to look just for fun. Oh yes, that's gonna have to soak overnight. So, I've done this before. I try to learn from my mistakes, but yes, always make sure you have plenty of water. You can always add more water when you're cooking, so just check your water level every once in a while when you're steaming. So, I'm gonna go ahead and transfer some of my sweet potato into my bowl for mashing, okay? And then I'll finish my cheese. Okay. Oh, this smells so good. All right. I don't think I'm going to need all of this. Let's see. That should be good. Okay. So I've got my sweet potato, very steamy, very tender. I'm gonna let that cool for a minute. We don't need to mash it up right away. I'm gonna finish with my cheese. Okay. So I'm on to my last little piece of cheese that I'm slicing up here. So I've got half grated cheese, half sliced cheese. Okay, almost done. Last cut. There we go. Okay. There we go. I don't know what you guys have to let me know what you did, whether you grated it or sliced it, which way you like better. If you slice it thin enough with the wavy chopper, it's almost like it was grated. Do you see how mine is like separating, almost like it's a coarsely grated cheese? That's pretty cool. Okay, so I'm done with the chopper, I'm done with my grater. Okay, so let's go ahead and get our beans, our onions sauteing for our beans. So we've got our sweet potato all cooked, ready to be mashed, and we're gonna get our onion sauteing, and then while that mixture is going, we can mash our sweet potatoes. So I brought a pan here, and I've got a little oil. So we use sunflower oil, but you can use canola oil, even olive oil. And we're gonna turn it on like medium heat, medium low, nothing too crazy. And you don't need a lot of oil, just a little bit of oil. Because we're not sauteing a lot of stuff. Like look at this, tiny little bit of garlic and onion. So, and we're only putting half a can of beans in. So where's my spoon? Okay. So here's my spoon. I'm gonna go ahead and put my onion in first. And we're just gonna let it cook for about 3-4 minutes or so. Just to start getting tender. It'll start to sizzle, start to smell really good. And cooking the onions like this, sauteing them, brings out the sweetness. Very delicious. Okay, so, and then we'll add our garlic. After our onions cook for about 4 minutes or so, we'll add our garlic, and then we'll add our seasonings as well. But as I mentioned, we only need a half a can of beans, and drained and rinsed. So you want to rinse off all the liquid that the beans are sitting in the can. So this is a whole can of beans, and I'm kind of curious how much this is. Like how many cups of beans, drained and rinsed, are in a can. So I feel like it might be about 1.5 cups. So I've got a half cup measure, and I'm gonna see. So that's one half cup. Let's be, I think that's good. That's a full cup. Okay, a little, so that's 1.5 cups, and then there's just a little bit left. So it's probably, so that's very little bit. It's probably 1.5 cups plus maybe 2 tablespoons. Okay, so then we need a little more than 3/4 of a cup if we're using half a can. So I'm gonna go ahead, this is half a cup, and then I'll fill this scoop up again, but not quite all the way, like another scant half cup. So I'll do that. All right, let's see if that looks about even. It does. Great. So my onions are sizzling. I'm gonna go ahead and give them a stir. And I like to get a little color on my onions, not too much, but just like so they're lightly brown, kind of caramelizing a little bit. Okay. So we'll let that go for a couple more minutes. And then we're gonna put our cheese off to the side. We're gonna use that for assembly in just a few minutes. My apron's falling off. I'm gonna retie my apron. How are things going for you guys? Are you guys good? Are your onions sauteing? Got your cheese all grated up? Your beans drained and rinsed? Ready for soon to be assembly? First we gotta mash though. Okay. So I've got my minced garlic that's gonna go in my onions in a moment. And I've got my sweet potato right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and measure my milk into my sweet potato. So we need 2 tablespoons of milk. So I've got my milk right here. You can totally use a non-dairy milk if you want, by the way. Just make sure it's not sweetened. Okay, so I'm gonna do 2 tablespoons. 1 and 2. We basically just want a little bit of liquid in here so that we can mash it a little bit smoother, right? Because mashed potato, you don't want it to be too dry. You want some moisture in there. And I'm gonna stir my onion. The other thing we're gonna put in our sweet potato is a little salt and a little cumin. So 1/8 of a teaspoon of each. I'm gonna measure out a little bit of salt, level it off, okay, and the cumin. And of course we can taste this mixture after we mash it up and see if we wanna adjust the seasoning at all. Okay, now before we mash this, I'm gonna add my garlic to my onions over here. And at the same time, we can add our other seasoning, which is the same, salt and cumin, same amount, to our onions and garlic. I could have just put it on the garlic and then dumped the whole thing in, but I didn't. So 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt and 1/8 of a teaspoon of cumin. So sometimes it's nice to add the spices like this into a pan that is, you know, a bit dry, that just has the oil and veggies in it, because it almost like toasts the spice a little bit. So that can be really nice. So I'm just gonna stir this for about 30 seconds. And then I'm gonna add our beans. So this is, remember, a 1/2 can of black beans, drained and rinsed. Now, we don't really need, can you even hear me over the sizzle of my beans? We don't really need to cook the beans now. The onions and the garlic are nicely cooked. We don't even really need to heat them because we're gonna be heating our quesadilla up, right, once we fill it. Then I'll go ahead and let it cook and let the flavors meld for like a minute or so. And then I'm gonna turn the heat off. Smells so good, I cannot wait to taste it. Okay. All right, we'll turn that off. And I'm gonna just leave it on the burner. The heat's off, but I'll leave it on there for a moment while we mash our sweet potatoes, and then we'll kind of make our little assembly station for assembling our quesadillas. So I have this really awesome mini masher. You can use a larger potato masher. This is more like, I think they sell it like an avocado masher. You can even use a fork. It just takes a little more work, and you need to use a plate or a more shallow bowl to be able to reach in. You could use a hand mixer too, but I think mashing is more fun. So I'm just pressing down into my potatoes, and then every once in a while you kind of gotta tap the mashed stuff out so you can keep going. Yeah, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. It's bright orange. I might add just a little more milk. See how mine is, I mean, it looks delicious, but it's you know, it's like a little chunky. So I'm gonna add just a little bit more milk. I have a little bit more here, just a drizzle. There we go. Oh, that's much better. So you don't need it to be totally smooth, which is good, because with the mashers, you know, it's kind of hard to get it completely smooth. So a little texture is totally fine. Okay, so I think it's done. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna taste it, and I strongly encourage you to taste it too, because A, then you know what it tastes like, and you also will be able to tell if you need to add any more salt or any more cumin. It's really good. I taste the cumin, so I don't think I want any more cumin, but I do think I want a little bit more salt. So I'm gonna do just a finger pinch of salt right here. Just a little pinch. Okay, maybe another little, just a little bit. Okay. And now I'm just gonna use the masher to stir it up again, and I'm gonna taste it one more time. But I'm not gonna put this side of my fork in again because I already tasted with that side. So I'm gonna taste with this side, okay? This is a little kitchen trick. And that way I'm not putting my germs into the sweet potato. Perfect. Okay, so I'm happy with that. And now we'll put this off to the side. We have our cheese and we have our sweet potato, and I'm gonna take our beans and take them out of this pan and put them in a bowl. And now it's time to assemble. So the great thing about these two guys is that you can assemble them in advance. So you can do all this, you know, earlier in the day, even in the morning. You can even do it in the night before and even assemble the whole thing and just wrap them up in plastic wrap or foil or something before you do the final cook of the quesadilla and have them in the fridge, and then you have them all ready. And all you have to do is put them in a pan, heat them through so the cheese melts and everything's nice and hot, and you're done. So really good to find shortcuts when you can to help you be able to, you know, get dinner on the table faster. Okay, so I'm gonna use the same pan to cook my quesadillas. So I'm just gonna leave this out. And I don't need this anymore. I'm just gonna clean up my area a little bit. Okay, and I have my almost like comically mini tortillas. So we like to use whole wheat tortillas whenever we can. That's what we like to do. But of course you can use whatever you have handy. I love to make homemade tortillas. If anybody wants, I would love to do a Facebook Live tortilla making workshop. Wouldn't that be fun? It's so easy and it's kind of fun. And maybe one of these days we'll do that. Okay, I have a spoon. I kind of wish I had 2 spoons, but I'm just gonna use the same spoon. So, you know what I didn't do though, is I didn't taste my beans. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take a little bit, 'cause this is a clean spoon, take a little bit of bean mixture, it looks so good, and I'm just gonna put them on my fork here, because I don't wanna dirty the spoon. I love that garlic flavor. The beans are perfect. I don't think they need any seasoning. Okay, so now what we do is, remember, quesadilla is folded over like this, right? So the filling, it's kind of like a taco, right? But a taco, you fill right before you eat it. You don't cook it anymore usually. With a quesadilla, instead of it being upright like this, it's like to the side like this, and you fill it and then cook it. So when we assemble, we only want to put filling on 1/2, right? Because we're going to fold it over. So take a spoon and you're going to spread a thin layer. Okay, this is what I was talking about. Overfilling, you can always just have another one, right? If you overfill, you go to bite into it and the sweet potato just oozes out. It's no good. So I think you don't want to be able to see the tortilla through the sweet potato, but this is a pretty thin layer. I'll show you what mine looks like. So, and you can use, like I'm doing, the back of the spoon to spread it, okay? So you see how thin that is? So it's covered, but it's a nice thin layer, and I only covered half my tortilla. Then, and you can use 2 separate spoons, so you can have like an assembly line. Everybody in your family can make their own. Then you take a scoop of beans, or 2, and again, spread them out. You don't want a completely full layer of beans, but you want, sorry, our internet just froze for a second. Okay, so I'll show you guys what we're doing. I think this is good. Okay, so that's what that looks like. So again, it's a nice full layer, but not packed, and it's definitely a single layer, right? And the beans aren't all completely packed next to each other. Now is the cheese. So I'm gonna do shredded cheese on this one. So you can just sprinkle. So again, you want cheese to cover your beans, but don't pile it too high, okay? Okay, a little bit more. Okay, I hope I didn't overfill mine. But there we go. And then you fold it over, okay? And what you can do if you want to assemble them all at once is you can just have a plate or a baking sheet and just stack them, right? Have them all ready to go. Or you can put people in your house to work and then they get to make their own. So when it comes time to cook them, you can do them in a skillet. You can do them in the oven. I like to do mine in a skillet, but if you're making a bunch, it makes more sense really to just put them in the oven. And you can put them in at like, 375, 400 degrees. But so I'm gonna show you how to do it in a pan. So I'm gonna do mine over like medium heat. So I actually could fit two. Sometimes you can fit two in a pan because they're half circles. So you could just have two, straight side together. That works really well. You just have to be careful when you flip them. Maybe I'll make another one. And maybe I'll try it with the sliced cheese and see if it comes out any differently. So they only take, really all you need to do is make sure everything is nice and heated through and make sure your cheese is nice and melted. So after a couple minutes, I might take my spatula and just gently press the top, but you don't want to press too hard or all your filling will fall out. So again, we're doing thin layer of potato. Okay, perfect. And a layer of beans. Okay, spread it around. Oh, too many. I think I might be overfilling them, but it looks so good. Okay, there, that's good. And now I'm gonna arrange some sliced cheese on it. It is easier to work with the sliced cheese than the grated cheese. There. Whoop. Perfect, and now I'm just gonna add this guy to my pan. Whoops, my cheese almost fell out. Okay, I saved it. Gotta be very careful when you're adding it to the hot pan. Okay, now I'm gonna take my spatula, I'm just gonna gently press down the one that's already in there. And I can already tell that the cheese is starting to melt. I'm gonna move all this so I can get a plate ready here so I can show you. Oh, I made a bit of a mess. That's all right. I'll show you what this, what our final product is gonna look like. And as I mentioned, I have a little bit of Greek yogurt here for topping. Plain Greek yogurt, of course, not like vanilla or anything. I don't think that would be good, but you never know. I really wish I had some salsa, but I don't. Other things that would be really good is a little guacamole. That would be very tasty. But I'm just gonna use Greek yogurt, and I'm happy about it. All right, I think one of them is ready to flip, the one I put in first. So I'm gonna go ahead and flip that one over. And my toppings are staying, or my fillings, I should say, are staying in so far. So I'm happy about that. We'll give it a little flip. Oh, see, that's what's nice about the pan. So when you do it in the pan, you get the little crispiness on the outside of the tortilla, which is really nice. You don't really get that when you do it in the oven, right? So I think that's really nice. Plus, in the, when you're doing it in the pan, you kind of press it down. It just it all stays together a little bit more. I highly recommend that. Okay, I think my first one is going to be done in about a minute. So I'll just, if you guys want to see what mine's going to look like, I'll show you. I don't have a knife to cut it out here, but that's okay. I'll just show you the whole one. And since it's so tiny, I don't even really need to cut it to eat it. All right, let me see. Oh, my cheese is melted. Okay, guys, I'm going to flip my second one and then take off my first one and show you. Oh, I lost a piece of cheese from my second one. Okay, look at that. Do you see what I mean about how pretty this nice brown bit of the tortilla is from the pan? And then all my cheese is nice and melted in there. And then what you can do is just dollop a little bit of yogurt. I'm gonna taste it, see how it turned out. Oh, it looks so good. Look at the inside of that. Doesn't it look delicious? Mmm. Very tasty, if I do say so myself. I hope you guys enjoy. If you make it and have pictures, we'd love to see them. You can just comment on this video and post a pic. And let's see, on Wednesday, Mr. Sam is gonna be making brownie sundaes. So that's gonna be really, really good. And we're about to start a 6-week series next week. We haven't even announced it yet. We're putting it up right now of Zoom classes. So we're really excited about that. We're gonna have like 14 classes available a week. So there's gonna be so many opportunities to join in. So please check out that schedule. We have 2 different series to choose from, so it's gonna be really fun. And yeah, thanks for cooking with me, and I hope to see you guys soon. Bye.